So today we are joined by Andrew Pelekis with Planosaurs. If you guys don't know, Planosaurs is one of the biggest IP NFT collections and brands in crypto today. I'm actually very excited to learn more, not just about Planosaurs, but about Andrew's background, how he got here, and what's next for Planosaurs. Hey, the great Andrew, what's going on?
The great Andrew, I appreciate the intro, brother. I'm doing well, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I love learning about builders themselves, right? Because I think at some point, all roads lead to that, whether you work for a builder and eventually come up with your own ideas, you are an artist, a creator, a dev. It's essentially the pipeline, right? And like, obviously sitting in the position that you're in, like you guys are accomplishing some really, really crazy stuff. And it's inspiring, not only for me, but I'm sure for everyone that's going to be watching the replay of this.
I'm definitely a legacy degen, and even my professional career before crypto was finance and investments. So that's like the oldest form of degeneracy, I suppose. And even throughout university and before then, I played an inordinate amount of poker, online poker, real life poker, all that kind of stuff. So I have a long career in degeneracy, but my actual professional career was in private credit, private equity, making investments in mostly emerging markets and things like that. I did that for a decade, but like, I knew I wanted to be a front office investment guy since I was like 18, 19. I just like drove towards that end and had a pretty illustrious career pretty early on in my life just by kind of like knowing exactly what I wanted to do. When I was like 30, so now I'm 36, like 7 years ago, quit that and kind of went on my own. And in that process, had already explored crypto from that angle that I was just talking about, sort of like the investment angle, a lot of real world asset stuff. Had done like a full degen cycle in 2017, like every OG degen should have, and then joined the Clano guys after they minted. And the reason for that is those guys were actually like really good friends of mine. So Cab, Plap are both guys that I went to high school with like 20 years ago. And once they minted, they had this great success in terms of, selling out the collection November 2022. They did it like 2 weeks after FTX collapsed, which was unfortunate market timing, but in every other respect, they sort of like blew the lights out. And so this kind of gave me a call about, we've got this thing that might be a little bit bigger than just an NFT collection. Can you come over and maybe help us out on the business side? Like just ambiguously, the business, whatever the business is. Yeah. And so at the time I had, that kind of experience. So I jumped in and then degened out with them and kind of turned it into a real company now.
I was going to ask, like, before linking up with those guys, right? What did you know about NFTs, right? Like, obviously, like at that time, dude, crazy, dude.
Yeah.
Like things were minting out, Bored Apes are happening at that time. CryptoPunks were selling for like $500,000+. The Azuki comes out, it's at $50,000, within a few days. Like it's just, if you weren't there, it's impossible for me to ever fully explain to you like what the Pico NFT mania was like, but it was nuts. So I'm just curious. Like you came from the TradFi route, you get the exposure to NFT from the business side of it. Did you even think there was a business of NFTs at that point?
I think it's a really good question. So I was I knew how crypto worked inside and out, read the white papers, like you said. TradFi angle is a more academic, like what is the product? How does this work? What does it empower us to do? NFTs from that angle are just effectively like ownership contract, ownership over stuff. If you could do it digitally, even better. But the NFT world you're describing, CryptoPunks and the Bored Apes and these like big things. When I first joined, I was like, this is nuts. Like this is crazy. This is bubble scam season kind of thing. But I will say, once I joined Plano and then got into those trenches, you quickly find out that it's not just this like crazy mania, but there's a lot of really great aspects to that in terms of the community building, the ability to like bring people together through the advent of ownership, and something that you can't really do in another environment. So at first it was a little bit nuts, but then very quickly learned like this is a really big advantage. I do think, on the back end of that comment and the prices and the numbers you were just given, I think we all know that those are sort of unsustainable times. That like while there is this great mania of like what's going to be the Web3 collection that perseveres through the passage of time, which I think now is CryptoPunks, like unequivocally, and there are other ones that you've named that are still great and do really well. But I think there's sort of like a period now in which we're in the NFT world that's way more fundamentally based. Like you've got to be doing real things and building a brand and offering real value to your holders for you to be successful, rather than just speculating that may happen in the future.
So like obviously when you're building like an IP brand, it's getting all of those eyeballs in, whether that's from the Giphies, from social media, cross social media, TikTok, Instagram. You're getting those eyeballs in, but there has to be a conversion point. And I think we've already seen this. Like if you study Hyperliquid, if you study Pump Fund, right? Like the market has matured enough. DeFi has matured enough to a point where the only thing that the consumers, the degens are starting to give a crap about now is revenue. Hey, is this business? Does this make money? What is the product? How does it make money? Where does this conversion funnel start? And I think that it's going to be really awesome to dive in more of like, what is the business of Planosaurus? And I want to know, like, all right, you come in and maybe there was a business model back then, or maybe there wasn't. Maybe you kind of helped architect it to what it is today. I'm sure it probably wasn't as sophisticated as what it is right now, because it wasn't for any project, let's just be honest, including Pudgy, including Bored Ape, including Azuki's. Like, it was not sophisticated. So I'm just curious, like going in, seeing the market mature from a business standpoint, where it converts from hype to like, what the hell is real? Does this make money? So like, I guess when you're coming in, what did you think the business was versus what it is today, if there's a difference?
Yeah. Oh, no, I think actually one of the things that we identified really early on was that, and keeping in mind that we kind of minted in this bear, like it wasn't like we minted at, crazy much. So we already had the, that real-time experience, but we were of the mind that, the NFT product, that is to say like this digital collectible space, because I think NFTs apply themselves in other places, obviously, but the digital collectibles that are represented by NFTs at those crazy prices, there would be cycles in the future, but we didn't think that it would ever go back to that same level. And I still think that's true. Like, I think that, like you said, people are now looking at, well, okay, what is the actual value prop of this particular collection, or what are they actually doing to bring more eyeballs, to bring more liquidity, to bring more money into the system, whatever the case may be, and how do you build that brand? And that's a lot harder than a moment or a flash in the pan. So we always knew it would get more fundamentally based. Obviously, it's a lot easier to plan for that path versus hoping for another bull. Hope is not a strategy kind of thing. So nothing would make me happier than if we were wrong, to be honest. But we kind of planned for that. And so, and we basically went down and said, okay, look, how do we create a brand that is true to its digital collectible, beginnings, and honestly, its tentpole as it is today, but also grow and attract people from the rest of the world, or that is to say, are non-Web3 people. And I think that's one of the fundamental things. You mentioned Pudgies, which is a great example, right? Like they did the toys in Walmart. They did, they've got a game that's, on the app stores and anyone can play it. And they've got, like GIFs and social media presence. All of these are great attention. Then translating it back into the collections, I think, is something that is not necessarily taken for granted. I'll tell you right now, like, if you're scrolling on TikTok or Instagram, the chances of pushing someone from there into buying an NFT that's also priced in the thousands or tens of thousands of dollars is near zero. It's probably impossible, right? And I think that part of what we think that journey looks like, or what we think that journey looks like, is very simple. You have to build fandom over time, but you also have to build this emotional resonance that creates something that is a link between that brand and the consumer. And while in Web3, there's a lot of people who immediately have an affinity towards a particular collection and the capital to put towards it, and they already understand the Web3 and they can navigate that whole world. That's great. But the vast, vast, vast majority of your fans, whether it's Pudgies or Planos or any of these big brands, is going to be in the real world, or not, is going to be in this non-Web3 atmosphere. So what we're doing, and I think is important, is one, you've got to compete on user experience, right? So for everyone else, digital collectibles is a real thing, but it's in games like Counter-Strike and Fortnite. You have to compete with those experiences in terms of the frictionless, and it doesn't feel heavy, and it's fun and all that. So that's the user experience you've got to create. And then you've also got to compete in a way like on the price, right? If I give you $100 to go spend in Fortnite right now, you get a kick-ass experience where you have to play the game, which is fun as hell. You can buy a bunch of digital collectibles or whatever, like digital skins and things like that. They're effectively the same thing. And you get a kick-ass experience for $100, right? So you got to compete on both of those levels. And then three, you got to, actually the brand has to actually be something that's that people actually have an affinity towards. I think on that third one, we do really well. I mean, Planosaurus is built by these guys who worked at Pixar and Disney and DreamWorks. So everyone sees it. They're like, this is Disney. This is like, yes, it literally is. And then the next steps are building a UX that people can actually relate to, but also building out price points, right? and I think this is the toughest one for people to wrap their heads around in NFTs, is that everyone wants their collection to be worth, FP of 100 grand or whatever the price may be. But how do you actually build, like you said, the liquidity into that? And the here and now is that most people that are in Web3 have been saturated and or already know the game, like you described, like, I know I have to be looking at fundamentals, what's the reality here, etc. And the collections that do have exceptional value as a consequence of provenance is limited. So only so much that can go around in the Web3 world. So what you're left with is building a brand outside of Web3. So that's what we've done. And translating it back is the user experience, which is we're building, a game with Gameloft. We've done a better user experience. We did the Popkins launch in June of this year, and evermore will continue to do that. But also the price points need to get you from, when I was 9 years old buying Pokemon packs, I begged my mom for $10 to get one pack, and whatever I got, I was super excited by. If I went to my mom and said I need $2,000 to buy a single card, she'd say, "Get out of here, you're nuts," right? So you got to build that provenance, and you got to build that brand value over time, and offer different price points across that demand curve, so that the person who today, and I think every brand does as well, you buy something that's $10-20, then you kind of go, you know what, I'll spend $50, and then you start to enjoy it. Then the next time you come, you're like, you spend $200, and people over time, as they gain more love, trust, and empathy towards that brand, and it's part of their ethos a little more, they spend more and more, and they travel up that demand curve. But if there's no road to travel upon, nobody's jumping in at $2,000. So when we did the Popkins launch on Sui, we did that one at $200, and we made the experience really, really, really strong. And that's kind of like a level before this, let's say, or I don't know what our FPSA, but thousands of dollars. And then what you really want to do is kind of hit those Pokemon booster packs where you're just doing, $10 a piece, where anyone can participate, have a really great user experience, a la Fortnite. And then if they choose to travel up and explore further, you're adding utility and enjoyment and these other things that you would otherwise not have if you didn't do that. So it's that whole thing. And this is so controversial because most people are like, oh, you're going to dilute everything. Well, this is one of the irony is that NFTs are so good at being non-dilutive because everyone can tell you this is the immutably original collection, right? It's immutable. So the dilution thing is one of these things where it's like, it's a first edition. There's no questions about it. That's the whole point of being on chain. So it's an ironic thing. And I think there's some precedent where some collections have kind of printed the same thing twice, if you will, or kind of released things en masse and haven't really thought that through in a way that was more towards the brand building effect, and it was more towards this extraction stuff at a time when people weren't really thinking. But today, I think that's the way to do it. And that's the path we're traveling upon. We really think that Claynosaurs will be like the Pokemon of the future. We're just, we got 30 years to, we're 30 years before them, albeit we'll do it much faster.
You're actually making me think, right? Because it's non-dilutive if you're going outside of crypto. There's a few comments I have to have on this, right? For your non-crypto audience, right? The average consumer on TikTok or Instagram has a purchasing power of $25 to $50 tops, right? Crypto Twitter, which is why marketers and marketing, distribution, and let's just give it a blank statement. Distribution within crypto is so freaking valuable because the couple hundred people that might get exposed to something as a Web3 product might have the purchasing power of 100x more people that are not trying to be sold shit. You don't go onto TikTok, you're being sold stuff every time you go onto TikTok, but nobody's trying to sell you, very few people, let's say the gurus, are trying to sell you a 5-figure product or service. Very few people, realistically, it's a fucking pencil, a camera, a freaking, a dog bowl that looks cool with a cool IP. There's, they're trying, the conversion for those other platforms is not an extreme amount. But if you are making money by broadening your distribution, perhaps the NFT, the super hyper limited, first edition is for the super fan, right? It's for the super fan. And the value, how you're explaining it, the value for that is not predicated by just the super fans, but the broadest distribution possible, because, the reason why a first edition Pokemon card is worth so much money is because there's probably 100 to probably hundreds of millions of Pokemon fans globally, right? So now if you say, okay, there's 100, let's just use easy math here. There's 100 million like overall Pokemon fans. That means there's like 10,000 or like 20,000 mega fans, like mega, like super fans. This is their life. So it make everything you're explaining to me, I'm like, dude, it's just clicking. Like it makes sense. Like at the end of the day, if this, ends up all over the place, right? And there are 2 million regular fans, that means there's going to be, maybe 2,000 or 3,000 like extreme super fans who do want the top of the line experience, who do want early access to new things, who do want, IP distribution rights potentially, right? Like that's what some of the arguments for a lot of these things are. Oh my God. Yeah.
But you need the super fans. Super fans are super critical. And the funny part is that normally, like a Pokemon example, day one, you don't have necessarily that super fan who's going to spend $100,000 on a Charizard. I mean, there's no such card that even exists. I mean, they exist, but they're not worth that at that time. But over time, you build super fans. And in our environment in Web3, we kind of start backwards, which is we already have like the really, really bought in super fans who want to spend, exorbitant amounts of money on our product. And now you got to build out the rest of them. And both need one another, right? Because the regular fan, they look up to the super fan because they're like, this guy's got this thing, like that's so cool. Like I'm a fan of Pokemon, I want this Charizard. I'm a fan of Claynosaurs, I want, this ancient, right? Like, and it's just aspirational, right? But just having it exist at all is kind of what those entrants need that as well. It's important. Vice versa, you don't want to be a super fan in an ocean with no actual fans. Like in a sense, you also want to flex that you've got this big thing, and also like, you were here early, and that's why you've got this kick-ass NFT in our case. And so you need to have people who are like, I look at this guy, he's got it, right? Like that's kind of the social proof of what you've done in the first place. That's what brings value into it as well. So both of these things need each other, and usually you start the other way around. So we're in an interesting spot, which is kind of what we discovered almost, I wouldn't say accidentally, but the noise that came with launching an NFT collection is like, holy crap, we got all these people who want more and more and more from us. And it's like, how do we do this? The noise early on was a lot, but then you're like, wait a second, if I just reframe this, well, actually, these are clients of mine who are trying to direct what I should be doing for the betterment of the IP, and who knows about more than them, because they're the ones who are the actual fans. So it's actually a superpower, which is, the great irony of what we've discovered and how we're kind of growing from here.
I did want to touch on this. You kind of like started talking about it a little bit. And this is, I think, the superpower of building IP distribution on crypto rails. It's actually a buzzword that they sold to us really well in 2021. I fell for it. I'm not going to lie. I was one of the suckers. Community, right? Like at the end of the day, community is like, there are billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar enterprises that are dying to have a community, right? Creators today, from the Web 2 standpoint, because they have native communities that are there to support them, right? Now they're getting into products because they don't need, like Logan Paul doesn't need Gatorade. He can just make his own, he can make Drink Prime because he already has a cult-like fan base that's going to go out, support it, not only buy it, but share it on their IG stories, post about it on TikTok. And when you, I think the superpower for NFTs from an IP distribution and business standpoint, just business standpoint, is I think the number one target of any business is turning your customer, your client, your fan into your salesman, right? If they're your frontline sales, they're going to push the shit out of this. They're going to hey,
you're right.
100%.
And I think one of the things you mentioned, people say community, and I think you're right. Like a lot of people just take that for granted. Like, oh, I've got a lot of people who like the same thing. This is a community. And while you're right, at that moment, like nurturing and creating an actual community that lasts through time, that's has that sustainability, takes a lot of work. And people have took it for granted. And I'll tell you honestly, like when we first got here, I should say myself joining these guys after they minted, in a sense, I almost had that same inertia until someone beat it over my head. And I was like, yeah, you're so obvious. You shouldn't take it for granted. You got to build that. And I think community is culture. And you can by no means do you just build culture because you sold something where everyone likes the same thing? Like that's ridiculous. It could be the beginning of that, but you got to nurture it and put it together. And then you mentioned like your customer, your client, your fan. That's kind of the journey, right? Like, you know, you have a one-time purchaser into a multi-time purchaser into someone who actually really cares, right? And that translation over time is about those things like customer experience and being marketed to authentically. And I think, you know, it's not something that can be taken for granted. It takes a lot of work to do it properly and a lot of thoughtfulness. And even Logan Paul, by example, you know, the guy was doing, I think, these vlogs like every day for years, but they were authentic. It was just people that just were like, this, I relate to this person. The authenticity of that was what was so powerful. And that's what creates this community of people who are like, oh, I actually like this person. And because he's so authentic in those videos and kind of being himself, people relate to him. And that relatability is the empathy that required to build a brand. And then, like you said, years later, it translates into the superpower of like, well, if this guy did it, he makes, you know, Prime energy drink, I'll buy it, right? Why not? Like, you know, what's the difference between Prime, Gatorade, Powerade? It's all the same thing. Rather support the guy that I have some relationship to, right? Has anyone ever told you they like Powerade over Gatorade? Dude, no one has a clue what the difference is. It's like the perfect place to be like, you know what? Nobody stands out. I'll make one, but because people know who I am, and they'll support me before them. That's it. It's as simple as that, right?
It also comes down to like before, like I would say the social media era of the last decade or so, right? Like you would choose Gatorade over Powerade or Powerade over Gatorade if your favorite athlete or celebrity was like was promoting, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. So if it's oh, my, you know, LeBron is drinking Gatorade, I'm gonna go pick up. You know, subconsciously, I'm gonna
like
be
more.
Said,
that's
Gatorade.
Pre-social media, right?
Pre-social media.
Back then, you had brands like Nike's one that comes to mind, right? Like you watch a TV show and then you see like a crazy cool commercial that's like inspiring for 30 seconds. Just do it. Then you get to the shoe store, you're like, yeah, I want to buy Nikes. Like, I was inspired, I remember it. And it was that there wasn't much, you know, advertising competition as there is today. With social media, everybody's plugging all the time. So that authentic, like, I'm here every day being myself, buy my thing is really different. It's far more powerful. It's also almost necessary, right? Like, you kind of have to be there all the time and be authentic. I think a lot of the time people often forget that, like, the whole advent of like television and advertising is actually really, really new, especially in this in the way that it exists, like all the time, so prevalent, right? Like the iPhone and having a phone and TV in your pocket at all times is only a couple of decades old and really only scaled in the last decade and a half. And then so people are like used to telling these piecemeal stories. If I saw a commercial, then I saw Michael Jordan wearing the shoe, that's good enough. Now I think new brands have to really be like, I've got to be pushing out all the time, but also authentically, because people have grown up. And they know when they're being sold to, right? And people our age are sort of like, well, the moment I see sponsored or advertisement or even an actual commercial during, let's say, Amazon Prime has commercials, you open your phone or you flick that advertised sponsored content, or a bus drives by with an advert. You're not even looking because, again, you're on your phone. What are you looking for? You're looking for authentic connection. You're looking for like what's going on these other channels that you associate to. So it's really tough. And when you talk to brands and even in the entertainment space, often their strategy is, you know what? We're going to allocate budget from print to more social media. Like, okay, cool. What are you doing on social media? Oh, we're going to buy space. And it's like, dude, you're just doing the same thing in a different spot. And on the statistic basis, it's marginally more successful. So you are performing on your numbers. You're like, oh, I went from this shitty number to this less shitty number. But without knowing what you could actually achieve, it looks like you're moving up, right? But if you're like, well, wait a second, how do I actually not buy, but create word of mouth marketing? It's through this actual fan inclusion community work that's really, really tough to do if you don't know what you're doing. And it's authenticity, and it's doing it constantly. And that's the machine that really works. And it's like the first thing in your entertainment, in your purchase or content decision stack, let's say as a human, the first thing I'll watch on TV is something that someone I know has recommended to me, right? Before I saw a trailer or an advertising on a bus or whatever, it's what someone recommended me. It's just like, same thing. If I want to buy a new shirt or whatever, if someone told me, oh, this guy makes really great t-shirts, boom, I'm going to try that before I try what I've been marketed to, right? So there's like a stack of like, well, this is this word of mouth marketing that nobody captures right now. Like nobody knows how to capture that. And that's what we've unlocked through our journey on Claim to Stores. And that's what we're announcing later in the week, like what something big about what we're doing and how to do it. And I think it's that. It's like no one's unlocked it and nobody knows how to do it.
So if you think about it, before even doing the studio token, you're already getting experience with the meme IP token from the Nobody Sausage side, which is honestly one of the top tokens in that category right now. I think they even did a Terrence Crawford partnership, like crazy shit, like crazy.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, like just crazy shit. But I didn't know there was. Honestly, I didn't know there was a connection there. I'll be completely honest.
It's not on you, it's on us. And I think because that opportunity came at us so fast and strong that, we took advantage of the opportunity where it's like, wow, this is the greatest, like literally the biggest character animated brand on social media, Instagram and TikTok, not counting YouTube. Like, we've got to help this guy out. Like, what can we do? And then it just, snowballed into this bigger relationship where now effectively we're like, great partners on the whole brand, from Web3 all the way across to everything. And it allows us to do things like the Crawford fight. We've got other things coming up that are as big and bigger, and there's a whole bunch of things going that way. But this all goes back to the studio level thing where like we had always been planning for this. It was always ready to go. And this Nobody Sausage thing came ahead of that announcement, which is unlike our normal way of doing things, but we couldn't let it fly. We had to take advantage of what was there. So that's created this a bit of confusion, but it'll become clear.
Dude, that's fucking sick. I actually didn't know that at all. Question here, which I think you started to touch on a little bit. And it's a question that I have. We were at the beginning of this, we were talking about how like, what's quote unquote like popping right now? Like, what do people give a shit about right now? Hyperliquid is because they're the most profitable company, one of the fastest startups of all time, right? I think they per employee revenue side is $110 million per employee. Pump Fund, similar story, right? Pump Fund is whether you like Pump Fund or not. I know there's a lot of people who highly dislike Pump Fund. I don't care of the politics of it. At the end of the day, they make a lot of money and they solve the problem. They solve the problem that people go to them to, for still today. So this question from Dante Fi, are there plans to implement token-based utility or governance? Utility is such an ugly word. We've all been fucked over by that word so many times.
It's so vague.
It's so vague, right? Like, so I think more than utility is like, is there, like, how does this integrate from any like revenue generating businesses from today? I would even say that as a criticism of Pengu. I love Pengu. Shout out Pengu. Like, I don't want to talk shit, but like at the end of the day, it's a fucking meme coin. There's nothing that's actually.
Pengu has captured what we said earlier, community and culture. Like, it's been able to capture that. Right. And there's only so much you can capture in the Web3 environment. And they've done a really good job of that. So you got to give them their flowers for that. But I think in the longer run, it does come down to these fundamentals, like you're saying, like, how do I get my hands on an actual, like, revenue, backend, cash flow, underlying IP rights, all of which fall under utility, as does, being invited to a party or having a discount on a hat. So the word utility becomes so vague and so like, the value proposition is so polarizingly different that it's not really capturing, properly like what the value prop is. So I probably shouldn't tell too much now, but we're fundamentally at heart, we've got a system that will capture all of these things. We've thought about it, like I said, in an effort to capture this market segment that is untouched for a pretty long period of time, which is original storytelling and IP building. Like I said, the entire entertainment business is $3 trillion. But ever more studios don't spend on original IP. It's just like Marvel movies or iterative content. It used to be like a 50-50 split. Now it's like 90-10. No one really spends money on original content. It's a vacuum that people are dying for. And it's like a multi-trillion-dollar business. So in order to capture that, you have to think like it's got to be a tokenized system that fundamentally captures real value, distributes it fairly, and is sustainable, not just for one cycle in crypto, but sustainable for the long term, in our view, 10, 20, 30, maybe 50 years and more, if we do it correctly. And I think that's how crypto expands, dude. You gotta like, why are things like Hyperliquid and these other like DeFi products so popular and how do they make so much money is that they capture like this untouched demand. And in the case here, like that's often going to be real world demand, right? Like Web3 is so saturated with its own sort of, PvP-esque, like, that kind of, homogeneity. Like there's other sectors that really do need help and that can leverage blockchain. And this is what I think is the top one for us. I think it's the top one, period. And that's like a multi-trillion-dollar thing. That's how you're going to bring more people in.
Dude, you got my tinfoil hat tingling right now. Like, I'm so curious, like, what is coming up next? Another good.
I've given you more than I intended. The guys were like, "Oh my god, he said a lot more than he was supposed to say." So,
oh shit!
You got some alpha. I have to tone it down before I get myself in trouble.
It'll be good clips. We'll get some good clips. Chat.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm not upset about it.
This is another good question from the chat. Dante Fi, why was Solana chosen over Ethereum? And I actually had another question for this as well too, which was like, you know, I think with IP, obviously you saw Pengu launched on Solana. At the time, a lot of people were upset about that because obviously they're based on EVM. But I think Solana, sorry to any of the other, you know, incoming competitors looking to take retail crypto, dude, Solana won that this cycle, in my opinion. Like, they already captured that. So actually, I wanted to get more specifics. And you might not know some of this, like, why was Solana chosen over EVM and how has that been a competitive advantage? Because most other top crypto projects are based on Ethereum or, you know, just EVM in general. So I guess like you guys are more uniquely positioned, like on Solana, right? Like there's not as many IP prints.
Yeah, it's a good point. And honestly, at the time that we did it, keeping in mind, actually, this wasn't a decision that I made. It was a decision the team before me made. But it was what I think to be the correct decision, which was they were sort of like, how do we set ourselves up to build not just an NFT collection, but a product and a brand that can also convey itself into the real world and or into like these competitive places, like I mentioned earlier, gaming and other stuff. So it was even more unpopular when they minted in November 2022. Actually, exceptionally unpopular because FTX collapsed 2 weeks earlier, which obviously had sold the hardest. So honestly, it was exceptionally nuts. And people said the same thing, like, why don't you do ETH, right? The pure monetary choice in that exact moment to get what's the biggest mint dollars I can accrue, it would have been ETH, no brainer. But going back to what I just said on the token and the whole narrative and how we were building things here, it's, well, the opportunity is too big to get stunted by early money when the long-term money is not 100 or 500, but 1,000 of X more valuable. So the choice of Solana was predicated on tech that to our eye, or to their eye, but I agree with their choice, better for scaling and attracting people from the real world, whether it be because the transaction costs are much more reliable and smaller, also because transaction times are a little bit quicker or a lot quicker. You kind of need to have like high TPS, you need to have reliability in your costs and time. And it was as simple as that. Like, you need to have these things integrate into potentially wonderful experiences, whether it be connected to your toys, whether it be connected into your video game, so on and so forth. And we even did Popkins on Sui, by the way, which is another blockchain, which people are probably even less familiar with. And again, it's in an effort to always explore like the front edge of what's technically possible. Because if you limit yourself by this like blockchain sort of like maxi approach, while that works for a ton of different businesses, we're trying to attract the billions of people who haven't even touched or even know how to operate Web3. To ensure you have the highest quality experience, you kind of want to check the edge of everything. So we did Popkins on Sui, and that went really, really well. I mean, there were some hiccups in the mint, but that's how you experiment, that's how you learn. One of the great things of Web3, but you explore the edge of technology to improve the experience on the entertainment side. So that's always been the case, and we'll always continue to do that.
Right, and I 100% agree with your thesis. I think the future is completely omni-chain. I don't think people are going to give a crap of ETH, Sol, this, that, whatever. I think as long as the experience there. Literally, last question. You have, you can paint whatever picture you want. Where is Claynosaurus 5 years from now? Anything you want.
Yeah, I think realistically, Claynosaurus is the tentpole franchise for this bigger studio. I think on a 5-year cycle, we should have, by then, we'll have multiple seasons of the show out, probably some iterative seasons. I think we'll have signed some pretty big L&M deals. Maybe even Play-Doh by that time. Probably looking at movie. I think there's a world in which I think on that cycle, you're in that franchise growth mode. You know what I mean? You're not Apex franchise just yet, because you actually, ideally, you never hit the Apex, so you just keep growing, right? But yeah, I think we're firmly across that trend, and I think one of the things where I think there's a really great opportunity is on the interactive and gaming side, and I think the franchise we'll have built by then will show to a world that is bifurcated into gaming and TV and all these different things, how you can connect all these things so that your TV show experience is actually gamified and fun and a lot more enticing for a crowd of people who are often distracted by all the things around them, and also how you incorporate that into your real life product and incorporate that into your mobile game. I think we'll have like the first, the brand that captures all these distribution channels, but also aggregates them all in a way that everybody likes. And that's the franchise we're going to have in 5 years by now. And we'll be hitting all these different things.
Thank you for your time, Andrew. Appreciate having you.
Thank you for having me, Peyton.
Yeah, of course. Excited to see the next steps. You definitely have my tinfoil hat tingling. I have a lot of theories now on what's coming next for Clado.
Almost there. A couple of days, that's it.
Thanks again. Super excited for the IP proliferation. If you guys haven't checked it out yet, at Clanosaurus, one of, I think probably the biggest, I would argue to say the biggest IP brand on Solana right now. One of the biggest. Thanks, man.
Cheers, brother. I'm gonna jet. Thanks for having me.
All right, see ya. Holy shit, that was fun. That was really fun. I had a chance to learn some really, really awesome stuff today. Did not know they had a token coming out. If you guys knew that, that's pretty dope.